So, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, I should say, now that it's 12 noon. And welcome to our Winter Plant Talk series. Today's topic is native trees, invasive species, and controlled burns. So, we have a lot of ground to cover. And we have Doug Friedli, who is the executive director at the Missouri River Basin Lewis and Clark Visitor Center. And next to him, Dan Kostka, who's a longtime volunteer and also a Nebraska Statewide Arboretum Award winner. And Dan is a volunteer at the center as well. So I'm Michelle DeRusha, and I'm with Nebraska Statewide Arboretum. The Winter Plant Talk series is hosted by the Statewide Arboretum, which is a nonprofit organization. So if you're not already a member of NSA, you can find out more about our different membership levels and benefits at our website, which is plantnebraska.org/join. And I will put that URL in the chat in a minute so you can see it. Each Plant Talk, just as a reminder, is recorded for all registrants, and you all get a link to the recording on YouTube by the end of the day today. So even if you can't make a future Plant Talk in person when it's live, if you're registered, you can watch it later. So that's kind of nice. And you can find out more about all of our upcoming plant talks at plantnebraska.org/plant-talks. I will put that in the chat in a second. We have 6 more after this. So they go pretty much every other week through March. So we have a lot of great speakers coming up and a lot of great topics. So just a reminder, your microphone should be on mute. And if you can keep it that way while Dan and Doug are talking, that would be great. If you have questions that you think of while they're talking, you can drop them into the chat. And then we will get to them after their presentation. We'll have a few minutes. Or if you want to ask your question out loud after they're done talking, you can certainly do that too. So with that, I will let Dan and Doug take it from here. And they're going to share their screen and have a PowerPoint for you, and we'll get started.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to try this. We are novices at this, so apologize in advance.
No worries.
Now, how are we doing?
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
All right. All right, good. Well, we passed the first test, Dan. only 59 more minutes to go. Okay, so I'm Doug Friedli, Executive Director here at the center, and our friend Dan Kostka. Say hi, Dan.
Hi.
So today we want to share a couple of things about, now how do I say this, about what we're doing here at the Lewis and Clark Center. And already we have screen sharing, yes. That's this.
Why don't you click OK? Maybe that'll disappear.
Oh, that's.
Can you?
Don't know how to advance the screen, Michelle. Sorry.
That's okay. Hannah, do you have advice for that?
You should be able to just click on the slide and it should go to the next one.
I'm trying that.
Okay. Down, yep, keep going to the left there.
To the left?
With your pointer, yep. Keep going, keep going. Hit that button, not that one, the other one.
Oh, do you see there's really faint symbols there? Really faint.
There you go.
Oh, really faint. Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
All right.
All right.
There we
good
go.
job.
Yeah. I apologize. Okay, so here we are. This is a view of our entrance into our center. Our center sits on a hill that overlooks the Missouri River. We're at the southeast edge of Nebraska City, just outside of town. And we're located on about 78 acres of wooded hills and grassland meadows. And so we've got all kinds of trees, native grasses, wildflowers on our 78 acres of property. We welcome about 9,000 people per year as visitors to our center. And as we say, they can walk in the footsteps of Lewis and Clark, because Lewis and Clark camped in this area in 1804, 2 different nights, right along the river, which borders our property. Lewis and Clark had several missions that President Thomas Jefferson wanted them to do as they explored this new territory. And one of them was to look for flora that was not known to Western science. And so they noted 178 new species of flora that was new to science, and they documented that in their journals. So as we look at our property, we're going to talk about how we promote the native trees and species on our property. And then Dan's and I are going to talk about how to control invasive plants which aren't native. One of the things we've done to promote our native trees is we started a tree trail, opened it in 2023. It features 27 different types of native species here on our property. And we've identified those that we feel might be of interest to our visitors. Here's Mr. B. Ryder. He served as our first district congressman in Southeast Nebraska for 25 years. And so we were proud to be able to have him come and be the ribbon cutting on our new tree trail. He served in Congress from 1979 to 2004. And we were pleased that he and his family could come and witness and help us cut the ribbon. It was Doug B. Ryder that helped convince the Department of Interior to purchase the land on which now the Lewis and Clark resides. And then a bunch of us local volunteers successfully raised the $7.5 million to build the center, and also develop the property and so forth. And so now it's our job to manage all of this property, and it's all done through a charitable foundation. Mr. B. Ryder also, you might know, served on the National Arbor Day Foundation because he loves nature, he loves trees, and he loves history. This is a map of our 78 acres of property. The parts in blue are wooded areas. We have 3 different major woodlands. And then that shown in white are the grasses, native grasses, wildflowers, that kind of thing on our property. Throughout the property, you can see we've got trails, and it's about 2.5 miles worth of trails. And then specifically, the colored parts are the tree trail that we've identified as the Doug B. Ryder Tree Trail. And then you can see we've got various posts along the way, thanks to Toby, who got us the plaques. So we have posts identifying those various trees along the trail. Here's a list of the 27 different native species that we have along the tree trail. They are marked, and we've tried to also, we give a map to anyone who's interested of the tree trail. And then the map includes a little printout of descriptions of these various trees and where they're located. We picked these particular trees, and thanks to Dan, because he's out in the woods a couple times a week looking for things along the trails. We appreciate that. We picked these particular trees because they're right next to an existing trail, easy for our visitors to find and navigate. And although there could be better, larger examples off the trail, we decided to just highlight the ones that are right visible and close to the trail that people can see and maybe get out and even touch. So here's an example of this happens to be the white ash. And what we talk about, and I've highlighted in yellow some of the things that about this particular tree. So we talk about, and in many cases, we're on the western edge of these native trees range. And we talk a little bit about how Native Americans would have used these trees even before Lewis and Clark were here. And so here you can see that the leaves of the tree were used as a laxative and also an appetite stimulant. Talks about the wood. And of course, today we know white ash. Those of you who are baseball fans know that it makes great baseball bats, oars, tool handles, chopping blocks, all those kinds of things that are used back by the original settlers as well as Native Americans, and even today. Talks about how tall the tree grows and the fact that it's currently affected by the emerald ash borer. We have a wide variety of people who come with various interests, and so we've tried to talk a little bit about different species, what might interest those various visitors as they come. Here it talks about the black walnut and the fact that we know that Lewis and Clark ran out of ink. And so they were having trouble finding something they could substitute for ink, and they used the hulls of black walnut trees, soak those in water, and then it becomes, if you've ever done that, it becomes a very nice dark tan thing to use as ink. I don't know how many of you have ever eaten walnut sap, like maple sap, maple tree sap, but it's a very nice and has a distinct flavor in terms of the syrup. And of course, the nuts are one of my favorites, used for various cooking purposes. And then our next door neighbors, which is just across the river almost from us here in Nebraska City, they are the largest producer in the country, the state of Missouri, for walnut nuts. And of course, the wood is extraordinarily nice for the carpenters to use and so forth. We did have a red cedar identified, even though it is invasive. And we have cut down most of those trees on our property, but they keep showing up because birds are planting them all the time. And so that's one tree that is invasive that we're trying to eliminate, but we've got at least one or two on site that people can see what they are. Again, Native Americans and how they would have used the red cedar, and of course, early settlers. It made such a nice windbreak, and they're so prolific that it was really good for them to do windbreaks and fences and that kind of thing. I don't know how many of you know about cedar chests and cedar closets. My grandmother, when she built her house, built a cedar closet because back in the day of woolen clothes, the moths would come in and eat the wool. And so the cedar has that aroma, and it keeps those moths away. We have, again, shagbark hickory right on the western edge of its range, and a very distinct, it's really easy to identify as shagbark hickory, even without leaves on, right, Dan?
Yes.
And so, again, a variety of ways to use that great wood, and also for smoking meat. Native Americans made a dye out of the the bark and the leaves, and also lye for soap making from the ash of the wood that they would burn. And we're proud that we have almost a state champion here on our property. The state champion, we know where it is. It's within a few miles of us. Our particular shagbark hickory it's located along a pond, so it's getting well watered. And we're hoping that in a few years it'll take over its big brother, and we can brag that we have the state champion shagbark hickory. Okay, now I'm going to let Dan talk about the prickly ash. How could I forget the prickly ash? It's a fun little plant that I did not know was actually now called the toothache tree. It's native, again, on the western edge of its range, not related to the ash tree, but Native Americans would chew the bark and it has a numbing effect in your mouth. Dan helped me experience that one day, and I was very surprised how well that actually works. They also used it for things like sore throats and so forth. But we have several prickly ash on our property. Every year we have an event for our donors and other people, a fundraising event. One of the things we've done now the last 2 years is give people an opportunity to auction if they win the auction, they get to name or put a post beside their favorite tree and honor themselves or their family members or someone with a tree trail a plaque. And the auctioneer loves to talk about prickly ash. And she always makes a lot of jokes about it. So we have fun with the prickly ash. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he's going to talk about how we have been controlling the various invasive plants that are on our property.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Michelle and Hannah. So again, we'll look at the map of the property for a moment. We have the 3 forest regions and the 2 open areas. So before European settlement, what was here was 2 ecosystems. One is we call it the woods, but technically it's the oak hickory forest. And this is the western edge of the oak hickory forest. We have 3 oak species, and we have both the bitternut and the shagbark. And of course, the basswood is also found there. The second ecosystem is the upland tallgrass prairie. And post-settlement, of course, it's changes happened at a much faster pace. Predators were removed, fire was suppressed, and non-natives were introduced.
Another thing that happened, Dan,
the steamboat?
When the steamboats came upstream, right? And the river, by the way, the river is right at the top right-hand corner of this map. Steamboats would come up the river in the 1850s, and they needed wood to keep their fire burning on the steamboats in the boiler. And so a lot of the native mature trees were chopped down at that time. And so a lot of the areas along the river in our area, the long-term mature native trees are gone. And what we have is second growth.
And so here's a couple of pictures of what you find in our woods. We didn't have to do anything with these trout lilies. They were already here. We're just doing our part to take care of them. It's a beautiful plant that you find it looking. The leaves are the biggest effect. The leaves look like trouts with the mottled leaves, and then beautiful white flower.
This is one of the very first ones in the spring, isn't it, Dan, that you see?
Yeah, I think it's number 2. Dutchman's breeches are number 1. And here's a picture of the blue phlox, and this is very, very plentiful, very colorful, blooms for a long time, just outstanding. I mean, who needs a phlox cultivar? Just plant the native blue phlox, beautiful. And this is plain leaf pussy toe. So this is found in our meadow. That's the western open area. And these little flowers are, they're only 6 inches tall. And we did not plant them. So they have survived the plow. They survived the cow. They survived everything. They even survived the smooth brome. Beautiful little flower. And here in the forest, I mentioned we have the basswood, and this is a multi-trunk basswood. So what does that mean? That means this is a very old tree. It could be 160 years old. The original trunk is gone. That's where I'm standing, and these are replacement trunks. So if you've ever seen a European linden or a basswood in Lincoln or somewhere, and you see those little suckers, this is what happens with the tree. I think it was, between 2004 and 2020, here's some of the activities that occurred. The pastures were burned and overseeding was started with forbs and grasses. And some bur oaks were planted near the museum and the earth lodge. And cedar trees were removed. There was an effort to control tree of heaven. They were cut. They were stump cut and treated with Tordon, and that was problematic. Tordon did not work. So when I learned of this, I knew we needed help killing Ailanthus. And they were also killing Russian thistle and common milkweed, which we know is beneficial. And that was stopped about 2018. So we have a good population of common milkweed here.
Well, myself and our former operations director were farmers. We grew up on a farm. And when it says milkweed, we took that literally. Get rid of all weeds. And it wasn't until we were educated and knew now how much of a beneficial pollinator milkweeds are. So now we do plant them on purpose.
Yeah, so in 2020, there's nothing that remarkable about that year other than that's when I asked Doug if I could start pulling garlic mustard. So that was the beginning of my involvement, and also Northern Prairie Land Trust, that Krista and Chance. So in 2020, what was our priority? We were dealing with a tremendous number of individuals, so we wanted to stop the seeds as much as we could. And so we started pulling garlic mustard, and we started the hack and squirt of the Ailanthus altissima, which is the tree of heaven, and that's a great time-saving technique for killing trees if you don't care where and when they land. And so we were focusing, of course, on any females. It's a dioecious tree, so any seeds we saw, we would hit those trees, and then we also hacked any trunk that was larger than 8 inches in diameter. I mean, we could not possibly hack and squirt everything in one summer. And we started the spraying of Chinese bush clover. I believe that's Sericea lespedeza. And so that was 2020, and every year our priorities are just a little bit different. In 2021, we were able to hire a contractor who had a mechanized saw with a sprayer, and he removed trees on the edge of our meadow and our prairie, because the trees will move into the open areas if you don't do anything. And that was a tremendous help. And in 2023, we added the cutting of hay to our strategy for our meadow and our prairie, for encouraging the natives and tipping the scale away from the smooth brome. And in 2024, we've been doing burns all along, but last year we finally had fire entering the forest between the paved road and the pond. So that's the first time. It may be the first time in well over 100 years that there's been fire in the forest here. And here's a slide of hack and squirt. So this is one of the reasons we're doing this presentation. It's such a huge time saver. you're looking at the trunk of a tree of heaven, 3 feet in diameter, and you see some hacks in the bark and you see some blue. And that was done in under a minute, and that tree died. So it's a tremendous, tremendous time saver. And there's a hatchet, a squirt bottle, and gloves. And you just need someone willing to crash around in the woods. So we've got a series of photographs now on the controlled burns. And I'm more of the hired hand, and Doug is more of the expert here. But here you can see 3 piles of brush. So after the contractor came through with the saw, um, we collected. We had to collect the wood and burn it. You know, there was some follow up there, so that went on for a while. Next slide.
And by the way, you need to get a burn permit prior to burning. So we call our local fire department, we apply for a burn permit, and then we call the day of when we want to do the burn, and they give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending on the weather conditions, the wind, the humidity, and so forth. So that's an important part of the burning process.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Yeah, so yeah, burning brush and burning grass, they're pretty similar. You want a wind, you want a little bit of wind, but not too much. In the case of these open areas, we're looking for a wind from a particular direction because of where we set up our fire breaks. So here's a photograph showing there's actually 3 burn units on the site. One is the Bluffs Forest, which we haven't burned yet. The second one is the prairie by the museum, and then the third one is the whole western end. And here you can see someone with a drip torch. So this is a mix of diesel and gas, and they're lighting the grass. This would be they're making the fire break against the paved road.
Yeah, so the first step is to do the perimeter, right?
Yeah, we do. We generally do a little burn on 3 sides, and then we light the fire, and then the wind takes it through the whole property. And so in addition to the drip torches, you're going to want water and either in a truck or a 4-wheeler, but water is extremely helpful in establishing a fire break.
And we do have professionals that come, right, Dan?
Yes.
About what, 5 or 6 typically come with their equipment, and they know what they're doing. They've burnt thousands of acres, so we're very happy to have that. And it's all done in conjunction with the Nebraska Game and Parks. They're employees of the parks.
And this photograph shows a fire break around one of our bur oaks. You know, if this bur oak was old enough and large enough, a fire could burn right by the trunk, but it's still a little on the small side. So here you see we're protecting a bur oak with a fire break. And this is our operations manager holding a leaf blower. We got this idea from the Falls City Fire Department. It's a very versatile piece of equipment. If you're burning brush, you can get the fire going hotter by giving it some more air. You can also extinguish a prairie fire with a leaf blower. So very versatile, very useful equipment. So he could be carrying something that looks like a shovel with a rubber flapper on it just as well, but we like these leaf blowers. And here's a picture of the fire that the wind is taking from one end to the other.
So once we get the perimeter secured and get all those fire breaks, then the large fire is set, and the wind, in this case, the wind's always your friend if it's in the right direction, and it goes very quickly. It's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
How big it goes. The flames usually are about 3 times higher than the fuel. And so if you've got 6-foot tall grass, which we don't have right here, but you could have 18-foot wall of fire. And in just a matter of a few minutes, it goes from flammable to black.
So what do we do in a typical year in the prairie? we're typically doing our control burns in March, and that's to inhibit the smooth brome. We still have the non-native brome in there. And in May, we're spraying the brome with glyphosate. And in July, if we do the harvesting of the hay, that's when we would do that for the least impact on the native forbs. And in the forest, in April, we're pulling garlic mustard. Then from mid-June to early September, we're doing hack and squirt and some stump treatment. And late fall and early spring, we're doing the shrubs, basically the honeysuckle and the other shrubs, and that's stump treatment and controlled burns of underbrush. Yes, we might do some controlled burns and cedar. Cedar can be done year round without herbicide. Technically, stump treatment can be done year round, but I generally stop in November and then I start in March. And we do spend most of our time dealing with invasives, but we like to spend at least a couple % of our time helping the natives and adding seeds and seedlings. So in the prairie, where we continue to hand sow seeds and in the museum burn unit. Then in the trails on the path to the Earth Lodge, recently we planted some prairie plugs. And that's something new for the visitors. And in the forest, we planted some oak seedlings, both red oak, chinkapin oak, of local provenance.
Oh, I went too far. Now we
Hey,
hit
one
that
more.
one. There we go.
So here's a list of some of the trees and shrubs that we're treating. Of course, we have ailanthus. We've got the Asian burning bush. That's the one with the reddish pink leaves in the fall. The Asian mulberry, Asian barberry. We have 2 species of that. Asian honeysuckle, multiflora rose, Siberian elm, and then cedar is native. It's too aggressive though. And then black locust, that is native to North America. It's not native to Nebraska. And it does move into our high quality forests. And so we're starting to kill that, to exclude it from our high value forest. And here's another hack and squirt photograph. So what you're seeing here is a large Siberian elm, and it can be killed with hack and squirt. Now this probably took me 30, 40 minutes because first I had to hack through the bark and then I could finally hack into the live part of the tree. If you simply hack into a large diameter Siberian elm, you won't get the herbicide into the portion of the tree where it'll die. But you can kill a tree, again, you can kill a very large tree with a hatchet and a squirt bottle.
Hey, can I interrupt you guys for a minute? Because
Yep.
we have a bunch of questions, so I don't want too many to pile up and get out of control over here. So there are several questions about what your herbicide of choice is for the ailanthus hacking. And then a couple people chimed in as to what they're using. And Lynetta is asking if you're using Toradon. So can you be a little more specific about the herbicide that you're using in this method?
Yes, yeah, Toradon is not in use anymore. I don't know when it stopped, but it stopped before 2020. We use triclopyr. We got a bottle of Garlon 3A, but we're using 44% triclopyr, and you need to read the label and make sure if it's hack and squirt, make sure it's labeled for stem treatment, because sometimes triclopyr is in another product for foliar sprays. So Remedy Ultra, we're using 60% Remedy Ultra for the foliar spray.
Okay,
Does that answer those questions?
I think it does, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
helpful. And then there's a couple others here. So once the Atlantis is dead, then what happens? Do you use controlled burn to take it out? Do you cut it down? Do you leave it to fall on its own? What's the next step after the hack and sport?
Well, generally we just leave them. We hack them and we leave them. There was a site where we had 2 tree plaques, and we knew visitors would be coming there, and there was a tree, a dead ailanthus I didn't like. So we cut it down and we burned it. So it depends where it is. I mean, if it's near a structure or where people are going to be, well, now maybe you need to bring that tree down. And because the wind will bring them down after windstorms, they come down and they're still coming down. So trees treated in 2020 are still, some are still standing. I would say probably half or over half are down by now, but yeah, so that's a consideration. You have to consider where the tree is.
It's real
Okay.
soft wood, so it's real susceptible to breaking and so forth in a wind. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, safety first is our rule. And if it's going to be anywhere where people are going to be, we'll take it down for safety purposes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Question about the Asian burning bush. Is that the same plant in landscapes that's escaping into the wild?
Yeah, as far as I know, it is. Let's see, Euonymus alata. Is that the botanical name? So you can't, the state of Minnesota, the nurseries can't sell them anymore. That's the one I'm talking about. And people like to plant them on the corners of buildings because, oh, it's red in the fall, but I don't know, to me, it's a sickly red, pink color.
Yeah.
And we have a beautiful native burning bush. Plant that.
And then a question about mulberry. How do you know which one is that you have? Native red or invasive species? Is it easy to tell them apart?
It can be difficult because we're talking about introgression here. So you can have, I use my eyes and my fingers, the touch, how glossy is the leaf, the shape of the leaf, the color of the bark, the form of the tree. So I'm using strictly taxonomy and touch, and I kill what I know is Asian. And I know I'm leaving some trees that have some Asian genetics in them, and it's a problem that people aren't talking about, introgression.
I think that pretty much covers it. We have some other questions, but folks are answering them in the comments. So
Okay.
I will let you continue for a bit.
All right. Okay, so yeah, we've had some difficulties. We've had some difficulties, we've had some successes. So some of the difficulties are in the prairie. We still have the Chinese bush clover. It seems that now that there's more burning, that there's more Chinese bush clover. So some of these techniques you use, you have to be a little careful. You have to be aware of side effects. In the forest, the garlic mustard, it is daunting. We don't have enough volunteers and volunteer hours for pulling this garlic mustard. If there's enough people and you pull for 8 years, your problem is over because it's a biennial flower. So we're doing a good job in our bluff forest, but in the other 2 forests, the garlic mustard is pretty much uncontrolled. And we already talked about the red mulberry. It's very sad that the Asian mulberry is introgressing with it. I don't know what the answer is there. Another difficulty is our native red elm, the Ulmus rubra. It's a fine tree, and it's sharing genes with the Siberian elm. And so again, we're losing the purity of our native species. So, and is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It might be a good thing because there are some trees that look like red elms that are probably have some Siberian elm genetics in them. So I don't know, we could have a discussion. So some of our successes though, the tree of heaven, that is under control. I mean, that was our number one enemy in the first year. It's very much under control. I've started to hack and squirt other species. The Asian mulberry and the Siberian elm are also in control. And then with the three forests, I'm putting them on a 3-year cycle. So each summer I focus on one of those three forests. And then over a 3-year cycle, I will have gone through all of our forests. And we also have a motivated team of people who help every year. I mean, you have to continue with these programs to be successful. And here is a shy beauty of the forest. This is the native burning bush. What a beauty. It spreads underground, has a beautiful little flower in the spring. I didn't see it till I was over 60 years old. And spending time in the woods, you see things like this. That's what keeps you motivated. And then in the fall, there's a beautiful fruit. Very, very showy. Here's a nest of turkey eggs. I was 6 feet from the nest when the mother turkey flushed and flew away. Very exciting. And I took this picture. So for the equipment, I haven't talked about the equipment yet. For the garlic mustard, it's very simple. Just gloves and a trash bag. I like to use a little trowel to tease the larger ones out of the ground. You don't need a trowel. And I have an orange ribbon, a spool of orange ribbon in my pocket because I'm seeing trees that I want to hack and squirt later, and I'm marking them so I can find them. And hack and squirt, you did see the photograph. We have gloves, hatchet, squirt bottle with trickle burr and folding saw. So there are those cases where you can't swing the hatchet because there's a lot of obstructions. So sometimes I'm using the folding saw, and of course, then that's a stump treatment. And the honeysuckle, gloves, saw, hatchet, and squirt bottle. Next one, Doug. All right. And so what motivates us to do this work? It's not easy work, but we constantly find things that make it worthwhile. This fall, it's been here all along, but we didn't notice it. We have bladder nut on the property, and of course, I was looking at every shrub, killing the invasive ones, and I saw this one, and I thought, well, what is it? And I found the fruit. I found the three-sided bladder and the little seeds, and I knew we had bladder nut. So we may end up, we'd like to get one of these near a trail, even if we have to buy one from a nursery, and add that to our tree trail. So there've been a lot of people involved over the years. We'd like to thank Friesen, the past director, and Bob Brandt, he donated trees for us. John Crook, past volunteer, and Jim Nemec, he's our current operations manager. Also, Krista Lang and Chance Brueggemann, fantastically helpful people with advice and their time and labor. They work for Northern Prairie's Land Trust and also the Nebraska Game and Parks and Nebraska Statewide Arboretum. Anything else, Doug?
Yeah, we've been so blessed to have so many good partners in this process. So we've learned from all of these folks, and so it's really a joy.
Yes.
And we're still learning. So we're gonna learn some more right here, Dan, I'm sure, with these questions.
Yeah, there'll be someone in the audience, and we'll learn something. So
yeah, so feel free.
Okay, well, thank you guys. We have some more questions that are coming in. And I had this question as well. So tell us more about bladder nut. What is it? Is it a native? And what's so great about it? This person said she never heard of it. I never heard of it either.
Yes, it is native. If you look at the USDA plants map, it's native in the counties in Nebraska that border the Missouri River. Staphylia trifolia. So it's got the three leaves, and I mean the fruit is unmistakable. I mean, that's how you identify it, but it does have a lovely bark and glossy leaves. It's somewhat coarse. I mean, it's not super refined. So if you were to use it in an urban setting, it would be like a background shrub for you. But it's native and it's valuable to wildlife, and I think it's beautiful. I was thinking of buying some for my property, and I thought, well, maybe I should see the leaves first and then the blossom. So, but I think I'll be adding it to my property, and I have a friend who was out collecting seeds, and hopefully they'll be able to germinate some of those and sell them this spring.
Great, thank you for that introduction of a new plant that some of us have not heard of. I'm glad you mentioned Eastern Wahoo too, and it does get really pretty fall color. So if you love the burning bush but don't want to plant it because it's not native and it can be invasive, Eastern Wahoo is a good substitute for that because it does have really pretty fall color too.
Yes, it does. It's more subtle, it's not red, but it's certainly
Yeah, it's like
valuable.
orangey, but still pretty. Okay, so what chemical are you guys using when you are cutting the honeysuckle?
We use a triclopyr. I'm using the Garland 3A, so that's the 44% triclopyr, and it's highly effective. Now I did try hack and squirt on the honeysuckle. I don't recommend that. I recommend stem treatment. And Krista Lane, I asked her which of the shrubs would be the most difficult to kill, and she said honeysuckle, and she is correct.
Mhm.
So yeah, Garland 3A and then stem treatment. So I use a fixed blade. I use a fixed blade saw, and I treat the stem, and there's been no regrowth. And I mean, the good news is that can be done year round as long as the temperature is above freezing for the next 24 hours and there's no precipitation for the next 24 hours. Now, you might not want to be out there. And then for me, I get tired of flushing the squirt bottle, but that you can definitely do that in the off season.
And for honeysuckle, so you're not talking like every honeysuckle in the world. So we had some questions about, oh, honeysuckle's bad. I didn't know that. But no, it's just the Asian honeysuckle. There are others that are fine to plant in the landscape, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure I can. Yeah. So I'm just volunteering here in Otoe County. In Otoe County, there is a native honeysuckle. It's a vine, and I have seen it on the grounds. And so if I see a honeysuckle and it's a shrub, I know it's not native. So I just call them Asian honeysuckles and I kill them. And
Okay.
then a good strategy there is, we got the 78 acres, and depending on how much time you have, you want to focus on the portion of the acreage that has the fewest number of honeysuckle. Get rid of them there. Stem treat them. If they're less than waist high, you can pull them out with your hand. And then over time, work on those areas where they're thicker, where they're more dense.
Okay. Also, just to note, Hannah put a link to more information about invasive bush honeysuckle, a link to Missouri Botanical Gardens website. They're a super great resource
Yes.
about
Very
native
good.
plants and invasives. I swear a day does not go by here in my job where I'm not on their website learning and researching. So that's a good resource. Have you ever had to deal with autumn olive?
Not yet, although this fall I saw a shrub I couldn't identify, and it might be autumn olive. I mean, we're very fortunate here. You go to Wabanzi over in Iowa, and they have autumn olive. You go to Arbor Day Farm, they're just loaded with autumn olive. That's terrible.
Mhm.
That I would imagine triclopyr would work on it. I have no experience killing it.
You might have already mentioned this. I might have missed it, but what is the best time of year to deal with the honeysuckle, the bush honeysuckle?
When you have available time, because garlic mustard, you've got about a 3-week window, for example. So you don't want to do anything else if you have garlic for those 3 weeks, because you have to wait to see the white flowers. Otherwise, you'll walk right by them. And then within 3 weeks, the buckbrush is going to obstruct them and you won't be able to see them. So there's an example of a 3 weeks where you don't want to do anything else. So, and then the hack and squirt, you almost get 3 months, not quite 3 months for hack and squirt. So the honeysuckle is, I call it the off season. When I have time, I'll hit that. Ticks and chiggers, that's a consideration. It's really nice to go out after the ticks and chiggers are dead. It's a pleasure to be in the woods and not have to check yourself.
True enough. Angela would like to know if you would consider doing a guided tour this spring for a scout troop earning their forestry badge.
Absolutely. We love tours. We give them year round. Of course, Dan, I would say for scouts, it'd be best when leaves are on, right?
Yes.
To be able to identify trees better, knowing that ticks will be out, maybe, you used to have to, warn the troop, be careful to check yourself after you've been in the woods. But we love giving tours.
Yeah, so early, we did a 4-H event in late May, and it was a little too early because some of the leaves they weren't fully developed, but probably, June, July, August into September, that'd be a good time.
And if scouts want to help with some volunteer work, we always appreciate that as well, because it takes a lot of work to maintain our trails. So if they're looking for some service hours, we can certainly accommodate them.
Yeah, yes, we're looking for young, burly people all the time.
Do you guys have contact information on your website, or what, an email, or what's the best way to get in touch with you, Doug?
Oh, that's on the last slide of the presentation. So Doug's contact information was there, his email and the phone number.
You want me to bring that up again?
Yeah, or you can just say it and I'll put it in the chat.
Well, hang on. I gotta, let's see. I gotta look at my breadcrumbs that I left along the way.
Oh, while Doug is doing that, I'm gonna weigh in on the hackberry conversation between Hannah and Justin Evertson. I'm with Hannah. I like the hackberry. It's a fine tree, but it does not age well. If there's an injury that's more than 2 inches in diameter, I don't see these trees healing themselves. So I'm on the Hannah side of the discussion.
Oh boy.
Especially
both on this call, so don't get a big fight going again, Dan.
Oh, them's fighting words.
Finally, I have someone on my side.
Justin said, "Boo, hackberry haters!" in the chat. Okay, let's see. There are lots of questions in here, but I think there's a discussion about fire, but I think that's been addressed by Aaron, who is with Parks here in Lincoln. So thank you, Aaron.
Oh, I just saw it, Doug.
I know. I did it right.
Let's see.
Go back.
Oh, here's another question that I missed from Dean. Sorry, Dean. Do you agree, since cedars are so overwhelming, that it's best to first eliminate the females?
Sure, John. Just like the ailanthus. I mean, ailanthus. I mean, it's a blessing. If you got 100 trees, most of them are going to be males. I don't know why. I'm not complaining though. I mean, if you're trying to stop the seeds, yes, that's a good strategy. And cedar, they provide, there's birds that nest in them and so on. I mean, they have their place. So even if the bison was back and all the fires, there'd still be some cedars. It's native. It's not, it's native and aggressive.
We always say in the right spot, the cedar is okay. It is a native
Yeah.
tree, but yes, it
Yeah, and if you're gonna plant one, don't plant it low. It doesn't like wet feet.
okay, good advice.
Michelle,
So,
can you
I'm
see
sorry, go
the
ahead.
last screen now?
No, I think
Oh.
you need to share your screen so that
Okay.
it'll
So
pop back up.
slide 40 has his contact
Yeah.
information.
So I'll just tell you my Gmail address is dougfriedli@yale.com, visitorcenter.org.
Okay, wait, Doug Friedli at what? You kind of cut out a little bit and I didn't get that.
Gmail@gmail.com.
Oh, okay. Doug Friedli at gmail.com. Okay. I just put that in the chat. So, Angela, if you want to grab that and you guys can talk about a tour, that would be great. Karen.
Absolutely. And we also have opportunities to camp out here. And so we've got a Native American Earth Lodge you can camp in. We now have a fort, a Lewis and Clark fort replica that scouts can camp in. Lots of opportunities for camping, as well as tents. You know, we can accommodate, we have accommodated all kinds of groups.
Yeah, you have a real nice spot out there. And I forgot to mention that your visitor center is a Nebraska statewide Arboretum affiliate site. So we are so happy to be partners with the Lewis and Clark Visitor Center. I was just out there in November with my husband. I've never been there before. It's a great place to explore the trails, beautiful view of the Missouri River, and a great interpretive center where you can learn all sorts of things about Lewis and Clark's explorations and all of the things that they discovered, which was hundreds, if not thousands, of different plant materials and animals, and it was really cool. One person had a question about using hack and squirt for cedar, and then someone answered that and said it's not necessary. You can you don't need to use hack and squirt for that. Is that the right answer?
Oh yeah, and I could elaborate further. So, stem treatment, I mean, you could cut the cedar, watch it fall with a saw, but you're spending more time than you need. I mean, you can actually just girdle the bark and it'll die and no herbicide. So Jim Nemitz goes with a larger one. He just walks around with a chainsaw and he girdles the bark and they're dead. So it's pretty easy to kill.
Yeah, that's good. I think we got all the questions. So thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come talk to us and give us this great information and connect with us. So if you don't have any other questions or anything else to offer, I think that we are good. We can wrap up.
Well, we're always looking for experts' advice, so don't be shy to share your advice with us, please.
All right. Thank you very much, Doug.
All right. Thank trees.
Yeah.
Go trees. Go trees.
Go
That's what
trees. Right. Okay. Thanks. And thanks everybody for coming. And we will see you, I believe next week is our next plant talk with State Forester John Erickson. So he'll have a lot to say about the state of Nebraska forests, fires, and lots of other stuff. So we'll see you then. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.